Hi, this is Dave Page with the third installment of Fitz Bits, sponsored by the Friends of the St. Paul Public Libraries. As the author of a book and numerous articles about the American Civil War, not to mention the fact that I'm the current president of the St. Croix Valley Civil War Roundtable, people often ask me what made me interested in the war between the states. Although the answer is probably fairly complicated, I know for sure that one of the reasons is that my local newspaper, when I was an early teenager, the Mason City Globe-Gazette, ran a series of articles about the 100th anniversary of the Civil War. I would dutifully clip them and put them in a folder that has subsequently been lost. Much later, when I was thinking about F. Scott Fitzgerald's fascination with the Civil War, I realized that he was also in his early teens when he was exposed to the same series of Civil War articles I had been on the 50th anniversary of the conflict. Obviously, the fact that Fitzgerald's father, Edward, told Scott stories about his own experiences in the Civil War provided him with a much closer connection to the war than I ever had. In addition, Edward's cousin Mary Victorine Hunter had married John Surratt, who had been charged in the conspiracy to murder Lincoln and whose mother had been hanged as one of the conspirators. The big hoopla over the 50th anniversary of the Battle of Gettysburg only added to Scott's Civil War fever, and he frequently made use of the Civil War in his fiction. In the 1928 short story A Night at the Fair, for example, Fitzgerald compresses two events that happened years apart into the same season. The reenactment of the Battle of Gettysburg that frames the story actually took place in 1909, the year after Scott and his family returned to St. Paul. But Ye Old Mill didn't open to the public until 1915, by which time Fitzgerald had entered Princeton. By the way, after operating the old mill for 102 years, the Keenan family sold it to the fair in 2017. Many years later, in an article she wrote for Maryland Historical Society magazine, Zelda and Scott's only daughter, Scotty, indicated her father's, quote, first success at age 16 came with the production of a Civil War play, The Coward. The Coward was the third of four plays Fitzgerald wrote for the Elizabethan Dramatic Club in St. Paul, Minnesota. Named for its founder, Elizabeth McGuffin, the club attracted what the press at the time called, quote, the children of prominent St. Paul families. As Scotty suggested, The Coward certainly brought Fitzgerald his first large taste of hometown literary fame. Several notices and photos in local newspapers featured Scott. On one review he saved in his scrapbook, the young playwright crossed out the 17 and 17-year-old and penciled in 16, since its 17th birthday had yet to come. The first night's performance in St. Paul's YWCA Auditorium on 29 August 1913 sold out and netted $150 for the Baby Welfare League, a Catholic charitable organization. The play was repeated at the White Bear Lake Yacht Club in Delwood, Minnesota on 2 September 1913. Fitzgerald's drama concerns young Jim Hallworthy, played by Scott's friend Lawrence Boardman, quote, who feared to don a uniform and fight for the independence of the South. Fitzgerald took on the role of Confederate Lieutenant Charles Douglas, whose bravery contrasts with Hallworthy's cowardice. Lieutenant Douglas's sister, Lindy Douglas, provides the romantic interest. It opens in Judge Douglas's home, somewhere in Virginia in 1861. The judge is complaining about Jim Hallworthy, a man who is wooing his daughter with the help of a servant in blackface because he has not joined the Confederate Army. The Yankees show up at Judge Douglas's house. The Union captain says to Mrs. Douglas, "A few officers will have to be quartered on you tonight. I'm sorry, lady. I thought I'd prepare you. It's a disagreeable duty." Lindy finally convinces Jim to join the Confederate Army. 3 years pass. Lee surrenders. Jim has rescued Charlie, captured the Union flag at Chickamauga, and saved Bragg at Shiloh. Lindy is ready to take him back, but he's afraid he still may have a, quote, yellow streak. He leaves the house just before Union soldiers return and try to steal Lindy's necklace. Lindy calls for help. Jim returns and offers to play Russian roulette with the Union troops. They flee and Lindy grabs him. A couple years later, producer Thomas Inch created a movie also called The Coward. It opens in Virginia in 1861 at a recruiting office where Colonel Winslow's son, Frank, has gone to join the Confederate Army, encouraged by his girlfriend. He leaves before signing up. The colonel takes a pistol and forces Frank back to the recruiting office. Frank joins the Confederate Army, goes off to war, but deserts and goes home. Some of the photographs of early scenes from Fitzgerald's play and Inch's movie are almost identical. As the movie continues, the colonel goes to war in place of his disgraced son. The Union Army advances to the town where the Winslows live, and the Federals come to the judge's house. One officer says to Mrs. Winslow, quote, "The laws of war, madam, compel me to accept your hospitality." While hiding in the attic, Frank overhears the plans of the Union. He steals a horse and, with the help of a servant in blackface, rides to the Confederate lines. He is shot by his father, who is on guard duty, but manages to make it to the commander to deliver the Union plans. The Confederates win the battle, father and son reconcile, and the son probably gets the girl. D.W. Griffith's one reel movie, The Battle, told a similar story, only this time it's a Union soldier who runs from the battle and is convinced by his girlfriend to return. By 1915, Inch was actually working with Griffith, but there's no indication that Fitzgerald ever came across Griffith's film. More curious is the fact that Inch's co-writer on The Coward was C. Gardner Sullivan. Sullivan was born in 1884 in Stillwater, Minnesota. By 1900, the family had moved to the St. Paul Midway neighborhood, and the elder Sullivan worked as a travel agent. C. Gardner Sullivan attended St. Paul schools and eventually the University of Minnesota. He reportedly worked for the St. Paul Daily News and then got a job with the Pioneer Press, where he worked until 1909 when he moved to Philadelphia. At one point during this time, he lived 2 doors down from Fitzgerald's grandmother, with whom Fitzgerald stayed when he came to St. Paul in 1908. Sullivan worked for various newspapers in Cleveland and New York, where he started submitting stories for the movies. In 1914, Inch offered him a full-time job, so he moved to California. Ironically, when Fitzgerald moved out to California, he actually worked with Sullivan on a movie project. Fitzgerald's pencil certainly had been busy before he wrote The Coward, but the success and publicity he enjoyed from its production was far and away grander than anything he had experienced up to that point. Certainly the attention given to the 50th anniversary of the Civil War helped the play's reception, but we can assume that for a brief moment the Civil War, writing, and fame were jumbled in Fitzgerald's head, and he would make frequent references to the Civil War throughout his career, including working on one of the most iconic Civil War movies in history, Gone with the Wind. I'd just like to remind you, if you're interested in reading Fitzgerald's play, The Coward, it is printed in this book, The St. Paul Plays of F. Scott Fitzgerald. And if you want to see the movie The Coward from 1915, it's available on the internet.